Okay, so this is the first in what's going to be probably a 3 or 4 part series looking at Revit to real time. In particular, this first series that we're doing is going to be using Showcase as the real time tool. Um, so Showcase is a product from Showcase. It's a piece of software from Autodesk that uses what looks like it's sort of a modified video game engine that does real-time display at a really, really high level. So the trick right now is pushing Revit files into Showcase. It has some features specifically for architecture, but it's really been more about designing products to date. But it's definitely getting there for architecture, so it's definitely time to jump in and start looking at it. So what I'm going to do, step one, is I've got a fairly complex Revit scene here. This is the Guadalajara Camino Nueva Vida project that I've been working on, and what I'm going to be doing is taking this guy, stripping it down just a little bit. Again, if I'm working in really real time, one of the first things that I want to do is reduce the amount of geometry in the scene so that the scene can run as fast as possible. But then I also want to use Showcase as a tool to be able to get imagery out faster than renderings and also begin to build some interaction with the projects. So let's go ahead and set up a brand new view. So I'm in the default axonometric view, and I want to export again. I always want to export from a 3D view from Revit. If I export from a 2D view, I'll be getting two-dimensional information. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate my view, and I'm going to title this view. It's a pretty important step to me. I'm going to go ahead and rename this view to Showcase Out. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this view anytime that I make updates or modifications to the model. I want to always export from this view so that I don't have to repeat these steps, because the things that I want to do, I definitely want to get rid of the trees for right now. So I'm going to go hide in view category after selecting one. And I've got a lot of furniture on the inside of this. I've got some washing stuff up here on the roof. So I'm going to hide that category. And if you notice here on the inside, I have several hundred chairs and tables and things like that. And that's just a lot of additional geometry that's really going to bog down and Showcase that for right now I probably don't need. As I get in and start to really define more about how that interactive experience is going to be, I might go back in and room by room add in some additional furniture. But even in Revit, hiding that even in Revit, actually it's the model is a little bit more responsive now and it's working a little bit better. There are some other tricks, in major projects that I can start to do. The handrails, while they look simple in Revit and they work really well, handrails are something that often really bog things down as well, because each one of those is actually a cylinder, a multi-sided cylinder when they export. But just from the experience of working with this model, I think that there's probably not enough handrail in here to really slow things down and Showcase. But that's going to be the starting point right there, is working with this as my base model. So having done that, I'm going to go ahead and go to the big R. I'll wait about a year and a half for the big R to respond. It's not Autodesk's problem, it's my laptop's problem. And I'm going to export an FBX file. And I'm just going to write this to the cluttered mess of a desktop that I have. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave my name Showcase Out. CNV. Save. So wait just a minute here for the export. And then once I've got that export, what I'm going to do is flip over to Autodesk Showcase. And we'll look at the import process. So Showcase has a very minimal interface, and that is by design. It is also a presentation tool as much as it is a graphic, how do I want to state this, a program where you can get in and quickly and interactively work with materials. It's not about modeling. but I think that this is a program that as designers get more and more comfortable with it, it'll become more of a design tool in terms of materiality, but not in terms of form. You'll be bouncing back to Revit to work on form. So first little thing to note right here, this little down arrow is going to get you your context menu up at the top. Showcase hasn't switched over to the ribbon yet. I don't know if they ever will, because again, the goal is to be a very minimal and interactive interface, and you'll see that sort of as we're coming together. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. I'm going to click on the open file at the bottom, and I believe I can start a brand new project down here. Well, let's see your open file, your file. I'm going to go ahead and go to the desktop and get Showcase out CNV, and you can see this is a pretty big file, 17 megs-ish. And we'll open that up, and it's definitely going to take a while to build this file. So in this first tutorial, we're really just looking at bringing a file in, getting the basics of it set up. After that, we're going to look at applying materials and creating custom materials. We'll get into it just a little bit here, but not too far. We'll just start looking at selections and selecting by material, which is really important. Then we'll start building up more complex tutorials, building animations, building some basic interactions, and setting up what I would call a first-person walkthrough. It's not quite where I would like it to be yet. I'd love to be able to use WASD to move, and then be able, or the arrow keys to move and the mouse to look. It's not quite like that yet. You use the mouse to move, and then you click another button, you can use the mouse to look. I think it will get there. We just need more architects using it, talking about what the potential is. We need a younger generation of users to start pounding on Autodesk a little bit and saying it is okay that we can use our left hands and right hands at the same time, because we've all played first-person video games and we understand the concept of WASD to move and the mouse to look, and then a point click to start driving some interactions. And I think it'll get there quickly. That's what our clients are going to be wanting, is that level of interaction, and that level of interaction online at the same time. So this is the project now inside of Showcase, and you can see it's really interactive. It is really smooth in terms of panning and zooming, and this is a fairly complex project. I mean, there is a lot going on in this project, and yet it's still pretty quick to pan and zoom and move around. So one of the first things that I want to look at doing is, it's a little bit dark right now, so I'd kind of like to get some things coming together in terms of the lighting quality. So that's going to be right here, adjust lighting. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to brighten the scene up just a little bit. It's a little bit dark and ominous, And so the next thing I want to do is, let's make some basic adjustments on the shadows as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click adjust lighting. And this is really sort of an interesting way to do it. On the lighting, I can just click on the base and I can actually move the shadows around. So I'm just doing this by left clicking and dragging the mouse around. And this way I can kind of quickly get the optimal lighting for the scene. I would implore you to also think about what the real lighting conditions are, where we are at latitude and longitude. I have not found yet, something that's really going to bring in the lighting direction that's based in Revit on latitude and longitude. We'll look at that in one of the later tutorials and see if we can figure out something really exact. So, I'm going to go ahead and push the shadows sort of back and in just a little bit, something like that. And you can see sort of where I'm getting the shadows cast across here, some specific items that perhaps I'd want to show a client in terms of how this is going to perform. So now the next thing you'll notice is, again, and this was set up this way in Revit, I didn't have a lot coming together with textures and materials yet on the project. You can see I've got sort of the default wood on the doors, the default glass in place, and the concrete is just kind of a gray. This grass texture is, deplorable. And I'm not going to go through the process of replacing all the materials, but I definitely want to move through the process of starting to get some things swapped out. So let's look at a couple of the quick selection tools to begin putting materials together. So if I select, let's just start with the glass. If I select one piece of glass, you'll know that this is selected by this sort of rolling grid. The next thing that I can do is I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to select all material, all objects with this material, and you can see it's highlighting all of the glass in the scene. So now I have all of the glass everywhere in the scene selected. So what I'd want to do at this point is I'm going to go to Appearance, Material Library, and I want to start coming in and replacing the standard Revit materials with showcase materials. They're going to respond better and they're going to work better in the environment that I build up. So let's go ahead, and I've got my showcase materials. We want to do glass, and this is, I'm just going to use a clear glass in this case. And you can see it makes that quick modification. Now the advantage of working with some of the showcase materials is they're going to be more responsive to the environment that I actually build. So I'm going to go ahead and do lighting, environments, and background. And we're going to build a basic background. Let's open up the library here and get something that is perhaps a little bit more responsive to what this project is, the context that this project's in. So I'm going to use this dry lake environment. And so it's taking the time right now to actually build the environment. It's going to adjust both the lighting quality and it's going to begin adjusting reflections and some things like that in my scene. Okay, so you can see that actually it's come in really, really small. And that's something, again, that's pretty easy to work with. I'm going to look at my options. I'm going to have to remember where this is at. I'm wondering if that's, wow, terrible of me to have forgotten exactly where this is at. Perhaps. Let's see here. There we go. I'm right-clicking on dry lake. So this is environment in the scene, dry lake, properties. And this should pull up a panel where I can adjust the size of the actual object. So rotate, direction, light. And under the background, so there's lighting. So this is how the basic dome that you're seeing right here is impacting the lighting overall. Then I can go to the background. That's my background brightness for the image. The one I'm most interested in right now is adjusting the size. So I'm going to go up larger, and you can actually see that environment begin to come around the building. And that's, again, when I was talking about this isn't quite there for architecture yet, but it's getting there so fast that we've got to get invested in it. What I'm seeing now is I've got a decent background that's relating, and you can see this isn't seeing through the building. This is actually picking up the reflection of the background in the windows, which is giving me a much, much nicer sense of how windows actually act and behave. Now, I need to start working in some context, and that's one of the next things we'll start looking at, because this is, in fact, not a building sitting out in the middle of nothing. There's quite a bit of urban density around this, and that's one of the next phases and one of the next steps that we'll start looking at.